I'm Steve at Jackson Interfaith Shelter. Today we have Angie Guadagnini with us from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. She is the Community Resource Coordinator, and excited to have you here today. I personally have just really appreciated you. I've been in my role about 3.5 years, and from day one you were always just super encouraging and always had a smile, and this can be very hard work that we do sometimes, and so someone that's done it for a long time but can still keep a positive perspective and be such a collaborator has meant a lot. So starting out, just want you to kind of talk about how did you kind of find yourself getting to MDHHS, what are some of your previous roles, and then now what is it that you do, and how specifically does MDHHS work with those struggling in the community, which is basically all of what you guys do.
That's all that we do. So I started at DHS in 2009, and I kind of fell into it. I had no interest in child welfare. I don't understand child welfare. I don't understand abuse and neglect. Coming from that background, I didn't want to work in that background. And then I fell into a job doing foster care and fell in love. Just loved working with the families. I loved helping the kids. My aha was the family that I worked with. We were closing their case, and the kiddo is sitting in the car with me, and he says, "When I grow up, I want to be just like you." And I thought, well, that's kind of funny, because I wear mismatched socks on Wednesdays, and I thought that's what he was talking about. And I was like, that's so funny. And he goes, no, because you teach parents how to be good parents. And I went, oh, I couldn't cry in front of him, but I was just that touched me and made me stay within child welfare. So I did foster care for a bit, did my time in CPS. That's a really hard job.
Just Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services. It's a really hard job. I did licensing for a bit, and in my role in licensing, I was in the community a lot, talking about the need for foster parents, talking about supports for foster parents and foster kids, and putting together trainings for foster parents and respite events for foster parents and that kind of thing. And this position came open, and I applied for it, and it really fit well within my skill set. I'm very personable. I'm out in the community a lot. I try to be encouraging to everyone. I try to always have a smile, but like many, I can have down days.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it yet. There are days when I'm not as up and happy, but I like to walk around with my fairy tale animals following me, just because this is hard work. When we're constantly seeing families that don't have basic needs met, it is hard. It's very difficult. There are lots of challenges that we face with our families every day. So what I do is, if you have straight Medicaid, I can help you with transportation to medical appointments. I need Medicaid plans, so your Aetna, Molina, Marina, or Meridian, any of those, they are contracted to provide transportation for you for medical appointments. So if you have Meridian or Molina or Aetna or Blue Cross Complete, and there's a whole list of them, you can call that plan, and they provide transportation for any of those medical appointments. But I help with anything else. So I started out with about 10 people that I was providing transportation for about 5 years ago, and now I'm at about 60 people. I used to get 10 phone calls maybe in a week. I'm getting at least 10 phone calls in a day now, because we're talking about this need. So it's a huge need. Transportation is huge, not just for medical, but for groceries and childcare and all of those things. Work, it's a huge need all over. So if I can help you with medical transportation, I'll do that and get you where you need to go.
So well, I guess one question is, like, how many staff, so for MDHHS in this area, roughly, like, how many staff do you have on the team?
We have, I want to say, about 160, it might be more than that, between our assistance payment staff and our services staff. We have about 85 85 or 90 services staff, so that's our foster care, our protective services, adult services as well, and then the rest are our subsistence payments. So we have a pretty big staff. We're considered one of the larger counties in the state. Yeah.
And then as far as there's the Jackson County Health Department, is there overlap or do they focus on kind of a totally different area or kind of what's the breakdown?
The overlap is that the Health and Human Services is community health as well. So we have the health area and then we have the human services piece. But as far as what the health department does and what we do, they are very different. They deal with a lot more of the population health stuff, so STDs, maternal infant health stuff, WIC, all of those kinds of things, where we deal with the assistance side and the services side. So they're very different, but I think we're all under the same umbrella.
Okay. So if somebody's just really struggling in the community, whether it's a single person that's elderly and has a different situation, or if it's a single mom or dad with 1 kid, 10 kids, anything in between, what's the process of, I don't know what to do, I'm struggling, I don't know if I can feed my kids, or I lost my job, am I going to lose my home, is my electricity going to be turned off? Like, from that point, how do you kind of then step in, how do they contact you, and what's the process?
So we like to, in Jackson County, we have a lot of collaborating partners. We have a lot of community partners that work together really well to make sure people don't fall through those cracks. And sometimes those cracks are pretty big. So what we've established is anywhere you go to receive assistance can refer you to other places to receive other assistance that you might need. So you might come to DHS as a first step, or Department of Health and Human Services, so DHHS, as a first step. So you might come to DHHS and apply for assistance at My Bridges. So you're going to come to DHS, you're going to apply for assistance, you're going to look at our resource wall, because we have a whole wall of brochures and such from all of our community partners, and see what else can you use. So there's food pantries. We can refer for assistance with housing, so community action, TTI, anybody who needs emergency shelter. I always send people to the interfaith shelter. And if they come back and say, well, I heard that they have bed bugs, or Steve's mean, that's one I hear a lot.
That's right.
I say, oh, just kick him in the shins.
That's right.
But I always refer folks to the interfaith shelter as a resource for housing as well, because I know you guys do a lot working with community action. You work a lot with TTI, and you work a lot with folks to get them in a place where they can have a home again.
Right.
So we do lots of referrals to lots of resources. We send people to, we've sent people to Lifeways. So if a family has a child who might be on the autism spectrum, we send them through Lifeways so that they can get some services that are necessary for that kiddo to be successful at home and at school. So we work a lot with that. We have staff that are in schools. So we have 9 Pathway to Potential staff that are in elementary schools, and their whole purpose is to work with those families who struggle to get their kids to school on time. And we found that having those staff in the schools directly with those families have a personal person that can help them with any questions that they have. So it's been very, very helpful having those staff in those locations for those families that are struggling the most.
This is kind of a broad question, but what you guys do is very, very broad. So,
Yes.
So for somebody to be eligible for some of the different services, whether it's support for utility assistance or support for food or food stamps or the form of that, what are some of the categories to be eligible for some of those types of things?
I am not the person to ask that question. I don't have anything to do with that part of the process, so I don't even know. I don't even know enough to be dangerous on that topic. All I can say is I recommend that everybody apply, because the worst that we can do is say you don't qualify for the assistance, and then you can take that denial to another service provider, whether it be United Way or Salvation Army or St. Vincent or church, and you can that denial letter allows another organization to provide some assistance to you. But I don't know that criteria. It's vast and it changes frequently, so they don't even give me a little bit.
You should know what all 160 people do. I just can't believe it.
Oh, no, I can barely keep up with what I do.
So speaking of what you do, what are some of the different things that you've got your hands in as far as, your specific role and some of the other things as you've seen needs come up that you've dipped your toe into?
I've dipped my toe into so much things, I started on the Emergency Needs Coalition when I started this role, and after about maybe 2 years, the facilitator of that group was retiring and they asked me to step in. So I've been facilitating the Emergency Needs Coalition for about 2 years or so.
What does that entail?
The Emergency Needs Coalition is a group of service providers from all over the community. Most of us are hands-on, so we work directly with families, and we share all of the things that we're doing in the community. So for instance, Interfaith Shelter comes to this emergency needs and always reports on, we've got room or we don't have room. We had our fundraiser last month. We had a block party and, just reporting on just the different things that you're doing, the programs that you're providing to people that are in your community group, and just sharing it out. It's interesting because it feels like we say the same things over and over every month. So Family Service and Children's Aid does a parenting group every month, and they report that out. And it feels like we do this over and over, but when we ask the group about what do you like about this, they like that I know I can call Family Service for that parenting education. I know I can call Interfaith for this family that needs somewhere to stay tonight. Or I know I can call TTI because I know this family that's sleeping in a tent behind the store next to me. So, it's very, very helpful when all that information gets put into one nice little meeting minutes and it gets sent out to all of us and we can share it with our staff so that our staff know what's going on in the community. So when we have somebody that comes up and says, I need a ramp for my kiddo who's in a wheelchair, we can refer them. It's really nice to have all of those resources. So I like facilitating it because you get to know all of the people that are part of it. And we haven't been in person in 3 years. We're looking forward to going in person sometime this year after the flu season's over. But it's really a good group because we get to learn so much from each other. And I feel like, and I say to people all the time, I'm the community resource coordinator, so I know a lot, but I don't know everything. But because of the groups that I sit in, I know who I can call for different things. So I'll shoot emails to people and say, hey, you do daycare assistance. So what can you tell me about, daycare in the Northwest area for a mom with 2 little ones or whatever, and get a response back and be able to speak intelligently to another client without having to give them another phone number so they have to call someone else. I don't like doing that. Yeah, I don't like doing that just because it's just easy for me to just shoot an email and call them back and get them in the right direction. I don't want people to feel like I've called and not getting any answers. I try to be that stop. Like I'm not going to make you call one more person to try to get an answer. Let me find out and I'll give it to you and we'll go from there. But yeah, so
how does somebody, so if an organization that's not connected to emergency needs or a church or an individual, can anybody join it or what needs to happen if somebody wants to be a part of those monthly calls?
They can just contact us. Deb Spencer out at the ISD is our secretary who sets up the Zoom meetings. We send out a notice through the 211 email blast every month. It's usually the Friday before the meeting on the following Wednesday. So that Monday I'll usually get RSVPs from folks. And I'll get calls from other people that, want to sit in. I've got a gentleman sitting in right now that just is learning all the resources in the community because he had an experience with one of our homeless folks and he was touched, just tremendously touched and wants to get involved. So he's sitting in.
Is he a store owner downtown?
He is a store owner
He's a good
downtown.
guy.
Yeah. He is sitting in just to learn some of the things that the community does, so that he can step in where he can fit.
Yeah.
So he's looking at homelessness, but he might end up with something else, and it doesn't matter. But it's a way for us to get people involved. Churches and other organizations can just contact us. I'm trying to connect with folks who don't come to this meeting regularly, who are doing big things in the community, that I want them to come and talk to our group, because our group is getting out there on the ground too.
Yep.
So Bro Jackson, Jake is super busy all the time, and I have to nail him down. So it's other organizations. Center for Women does a lot. They have a new fathers group that they're doing. So
a new location,
exactly. So I want them to come in and talk about some of the things that they do, because I know it will help some of the providers that we already have on the group. So I try to reach out to folks. I open it up for our members to, if you know of a group that is doing something great, bring them to the meeting, invite them to the meeting, let them come in and share with us, so that we can share it with the folks that we're working with too. So, and I guess that's how I see myself, is that coordinator, is kind of putting those resources in front of the people who need them, to make sure that our families get what they need. That's the bottom line, is I just want to make sure our families are getting those basic needs met.
And I know for me, when I started over here at the shelter 3 or 4 years ago, emergency needs was actually one of the most helpful, because there's a million meetings that go on. So I was actually trying to be very intentional. How do I not spend so much time in meetings talking about homelessness that we're actually not in the shelter helping those that are struggling with homelessness?
Yes.
And I found that yours was exactly that, where I very quickly learned what's going on, who's doing things, how do I not duplicate resources for what's already happening. And you kept it to 1 hour, and so I appreciate that you do that. And like you said, a lot of the same things are repeated, but if there's a new person every time, then if we just skip past that, then it's gonna not help those newcomers. So thanks for doing that. I think it's invaluable. So there's a million different things we could talk about, but I think to kind of start wrapping up, I guess just kind of with your years of experience with what you've done in the social service world, being a part of Jackson community for a long time, just any kind of general insight or encouragement or just perspective that you'd want to share.
I like being here in Jackson. We have a great group of a great team at DHHS. Zoe has guided us to be on the forefront of just about everything in the state, which is wonderful, because we have a name and we have a reputation around the state for doing good things for our community, for helping our families. Zoe is always the first to say when we've got a crisis going on in the community, our staff is mobile, so they can pick up their computers and go to that location. So we had an apartment complex that was shut down emergently couple years ago, and our staff, we had probably 6 staff that went right there, helping people apply for state emergency relief, helping them apply for any kind of assistance they could get, and directing them to resources in the community. So I feel like we provide an invaluable service, and nobody else provides the service, so it's not duplicated anywhere. And we do good. I feel like we do good things. I like that we are everywhere. I like my job, that I get to be all over the place. I don't sit still very well. So being able to come here and check this out and do a tour of the shelter, which I would recommend to anybody, it's wonderful. I think I get a deeper feel of what some of the needs are in our community because of all of the places that I get to sit. So, and I think that can only help me be a better worker when I'm talking to somebody about some of the things, the challenges that they're facing, because I can direct them to different things that they might not have thought of on their own. So,
and for individuals in the community, even like the gentleman that's part of a business downtown that's just trying to figure out how do I
fit in?
I'm not a part of a social service organization, but I have a heart for people. How would you encourage ways for individuals to get engaged, to help in a way that's not hurting, that's not duplicating resources, and or like churches that are looking how to what needs there are?
I recommend that you contact any one of our numerous nonprofits in the area. Any service provider has volunteer programs. I have volunteer programs, so I could always put people to work. But I would recommend try out a few things. Go to Big Brothers Big Sisters, see what they're about. Go over to Center for Women, see what they're about. Go over to the recreation center at the King Center and see what they do. And maybe in one of those places you'll find something, or you'll talk to somebody and be like, oh, I want to go to the animal shelter and maybe I can walk dogs, or maybe I can go to St. or Felician Sisters and volunteer with the kids, or just find something to step out of your norm. And do something to help, because everything is appreciated. I can speak for all of my organizations that all volunteers are appreciated, and we can't do what we do without their help. We have to have that help to be able to do it.
Good. And then you had mentioned there's just a few kind of things that you'd like to share.
A couple things.
Fostering and all those types of things. So if you want to share those.
So as a former licensing staff, licensing foster homes, I want to bring up that we really need foster homes. So if you're watching and you are interested in talking about fostering or providing some support for foster parents or foster kids, shoot me a call, and I can connect you with the folks that can help you get started in that process and answer some of your questions. We know that kids who are in foster care, especially as adolescents, are at a higher risk of homelessness in their adulthood. So in order for us to eliminate or reduce that risk for those kids, we like to partner them with adults who care. So those adults can be a teacher, it can be a neighbor, it can just be somebody who is off the street who wants to help. And if that's you, just give me a call and we can connect you. Other things that are kind of important that are coming up is regarding food assistance. So if you're receiving food stamps, or if you have families that are receiving food stamps, those amounts are going down to their original criteria amounts starting March 1st.
Pre-pandemic amounts.
Yes. So if you were receiving $10 a month pre-pandemic, your food stamp rate went up to maybe $200, and now it's going back down, just flat out back down to that $10 amount. So we're going to see lots of families struggling when that amount comes down, because they've been at that higher rate for 3 years, so they're depending on it now. And with food costs the way they are, and food pantries being as overwhelmed as they are, this is going to be an upcoming need, huge, very, very shortly. The other piece is Medicaid. Medicaid cases did not close once we shut down for the pandemic. So for 3 years, no Medicaid cases have closed. Starting April 1st, every Medicaid case in the state is being reevaluated to determine if it meets criteria. So it's going to be really important for the families that we serve to have their addresses correct in My Bridges. If they can't get in, if they've forgotten the password, they can come into the office. We have staff on the unit that will help them get into their case on the computers that we have right there, so they can make sure their address is correct. Because if you don't get the notice and your Medicaid gets shut off, you have to start over. So we want to make sure that we have as many correct addresses as we can. So just really pushing to please get your address corrected in the system so we don't lose that notification that your redetermination is coming up.
You guys will be busy.
We are going to be super busy. Our staff is they're gearing up because they know it's coming, and yes, it's going to be crazy. We are at staff now, so we're not short staff anywhere, but we are not going to be able to get any help from anywhere else in the state because everybody else in the state is doing the same thing we are. So everybody is going to be very overwhelmed come April 1st when we're redetermining all of those cases. Yeah.
And I guess last thing I'll ask you, since you kind of mentioned about fostering, and for some people, getting into it, the process can be long, or even, there's different agencies. So do I go through DHS, or do I do Family Service Children's Aid, and how that works? But I guess as far as like support networks, are there any that you would kind of put out there, like places that like have families that can partner, or like the resources where maybe you can go and get a bag of clothes dropped off because you got a
We
3-year-old
do.
showed up in 2 minutes?
Yes, we do. We have Birthright is a resource here in Jackson. Is a couple of sisters that started the program a couple years ago, just to support foster families, and they provide several opportunities throughout the year where you can come and shop for the kids in your home. They provide some Christmas stuff, some holiday stuff as it comes along. They can provide like bouncy seats and things like that, car seats, things like that, diapers, just all kinds of stuff. They do wonderful work. We have a couple of folks in the county that are contracted with the state to provide support to foster parents. So I don't know how that one works altogether because it's completely monitored out of Lansing, but my assumption is that they're contacting new foster parents and just kind of touching base with them. What do you need? What kind of supports are you looking for? Are you getting everything that you need from your worker? And just advocating, helping those families advocate. There are several organizations in Jackson County that do foster home licensing. I happen to like DHHS. But no bias, no. But I know the other organizations that do licensing they're wonderful too. I can't bad talk any of them because they are all wonderful groups. Our coalition meets once a month of all of the licensing groups in the county, and they work really well together. So you can meet with DHS and get some information, and maybe you decide somebody who is at Family Service, so you might go to Family Service, or you might use Samaritas or Wellspring, or there's several to choose from, and it's just a matter of where you're going to fit. And
you said the largest need would be kind of older kids, right?
Oh, that's always the hugest need. We definitely need large or older kids.
People willing to take older kids.
Willing to take older kids. I love this story. I licensed a family and they wanted young kids. And they didn't have any of their own, so they wanted young kids. Well, their age range was up to 11. Okay, so we had a SIV group come in, 2 younger kids and 2 older kids, and the older kids were 11 and 13. So I begged them, please, would you consider taking these 2 boys? We can't separate them because they're really bonded together very strongly, and they need to be together. Okay, we'll take them both. They ended up adopting these 2 boys, and the boys still live with them and just doing wonderful. So even if you don't want to take little or older kids, sometimes it's those older kids that bring out the best in us, right? And some of them are tough. I'm not going to lie, but my kids are tough. So it's a matter of getting those kids and helping them feel at home right away, and feel loved and cared for, because we all know that we need that, and these kids, they need it too. They've come from some hard times, but they need somebody to love them regardless of where they came from. So that's what we need for our foster parents. I hope I didn't scare anybody away.
Reality is always good. Well, thanks again for what you do, and that's it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.